We are live.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our podcast today. We have decided we decided earlier to host the podcast CBDC, and we have Rukesh and Prashant. Let me introduce to you Rukesh, who comes with around 20 years experience while he was working in CBD, and he has worked at American Express, Lloyd's, uh, UC, and he is currently the CEO at Saxena. We also have who is currently working as a firm and has been in the lending industry since last 18 years. Welcome, Rukesh, and
Hello.
hello.
Can
You
you hear
guys
me?
able? Yes.
Okay. Did you ask a question? Sorry. We are having lots of problems here because I think Dolly is also not able to join in. So go on, Anusha. Did you ask me a question? Say it, repeat again. You're breaking up
Yes.
as I hear you.
I introduced you. So
Oh,
and
thank
I
you
also
so much.
welcomed you.
Okay. Go on. Prashant, you are there?
Yeah, Rukesh, I'm here. We're just waiting for
Ah, okay.
moderator to join. Should
Okay.
we keep expecting her to turn up, or should we just go ahead?
So
Uh,
let Dolly join in whenever he can. For everyone out there, Dolly was supposed to be a moderator, uh, and myself, Anusha. So I'm welcoming our friend Rukesh and Prashant. So,
thank you.
Rukesh, let me start by asking you the most asked question about CBDC. What is it? What is it? Why did you choose CBDC to be, the topic of your project?
Right. So, look, a little bit of background. So, we did do a CBDC, and all three of you were participants in there. Plus, there were another 5 to 7 folks. And we did this project, or we wrote a paper effectively. We wrote a paper for IIM's, the course that we were doing. And like, it was very, very interesting, and we kind of went quite deep into it, within our subject and outside the subject of what we had to do, right? But effectively, what we are seeing, or at least from an Indian context at the moment, and we can talk about the global context as we go along, but from the Indian context, um, there is a tremendous growth in digitalization, right, across everywhere, and I think after COVID, globally as well, but more so in the payment space. After the demonetization in 2016, um, you know a lot of real-time payments kind of came in. There is the whole, the data that became inexpensive. The smartphone penetration kind of increased, and initially, of course, it was the likes of wallet-to-wallet transfers that were happening, but then UPI kind of caught on, and UPI is currently doing something like 4 billion transactions a month, right?
Right.
But still, the problem with that is this is largely in the, like that 100 million or 200 million customers that we see, right? It's not penetrated deeply enough into the rural. So, when this project, as we were doing this, and then as we looked at the central bank digital currency, it was about how can India, at the moment, we were only talking about India, but the China has just recently launched its CBDC as well. But at that time, it was more about how can India launch a CBDC, or whether it should or it should not. But if it does, how does it launch it? What are the parameters under which it launches it? What are the principles and other things that under which it launches it, right? And what we were then proposing, at least our paper was proposing to the RBI, was largely around um, if the CBDC has to be launched here, it needs to be launched for the Bharatvasis, right?
Right.
And Bharatvasis, as we define, is how can it benefit the masses, the rural India, the unbanked population. We talked about financial inclusion and everything else, right? So, so that was the thesis behind the whole paper that we kind of wrote, right?
Okay. So Prashant, following up on what Rukesh just mentioned and gave the information. So here, why is digital currency? Why do we have a need for digital currency when the banks already are most digitized now, and we are using all the digitized instruments? What's your take on this?
Yeah, thank you, Anusha, for asking that. And let's take a step back and try to understand how money has evolved over time, and look at the basic definition of a currency or money. Now, money was supposed to be medium of exchange, you know, something with which you can make a payment, buy a product, pay your debt. It is supposed to be a store of value. So at least in a near term, if 100 rupee buys you uh, 2 kgs of potatoes, it should be consistent for a good amount of time. That is where the store of value concept comes in. It is supposed to be a unit of account. We should be able to compare between two commodities or assets and kind of uh, uh, see what is the worth of an asset. This was the basic construct of any money, irrespective of geographies.
Got it.
Now, what happened over a period of time was a fourth pillar got introduced, and it was system. It became a system of control. It became an instrument in the hands of government to control, to have a control over the entire financial system. That is where money in our generation, in the times, in the foreseen times that we are in, this is how the money, this is the money that we know. It is predominantly system of control. Now, when it is system of control, it is in hands of government. What should uh, what should government do to avoid certain events which should not which should not bring down the value of money? Now,
Right.
this is an open question. I'm not answering it. I will be possibly towards the end we can answer this.
Mhm.
But all these questions and similar questions actually brought in the concept of cryptocurrency, where your Bitcoin and Ethereum, they became popular. Now, when this cryptocurrency concept emerged, and we start looking at what is the concept, how a digital asset gets created, we are not naturally driven to our known thinking of money, which is how a government can issue something like a digital asset, but is in the control of the system. Okay, and that is where your digital currencies are placed right now. Digital currencies are nothing but a response of governments to the emerging concepts of cryptocurrencies, how cryptocurrencies are created, how a digital asset is created, and governments are trying to respond to it with their own version, calling it as CBDC or central bank digital currency. Now, why should government need that? And that brings me to your question: why should government need that when banks are already digitized? The problem with layers and layers sitting in the financial system is very obvious. The financial inclusion. I think Rukesh already spoke about it. Financial inclusion hasn't happened after so many years. In we are in 21st century, and it hasn't reached. And if you many of you would have followed China's latest publication, where they still say that almost 20% of my population is still unbanked. How to reach them?
Right.
Are We have banks existing? Why banks couldn't reach them? Okay, and this is just the statistics of one country which has formally gone live with a digital version of the currency. If you look at other, if you look around, there are almost 9 countries now who are in some or the other pilot phase, and another 16 are actually discovering how we can do their own version. Now, what if a central bank launches digital currency? Can
That
it
was
be?
that was actually my next question to
Yeah, can it? Yeah. So,
so
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 if bank, rather I should say central bank, is empowered to issue a digital currency using the concepts of using the emerging technologies around distributed ledger, around blockchain, or leveraging those concepts and creating its own version, then they also get a tool in hand to reach the last mile and create 100% financial inclusion. That is where CBDCs are shaping up, and that is the use case for CBDCs to, and that is where they are getting attention.
so
Absolutely.
So
Rukesh, you want
you're
to
saying that implementation of CBDC in the Indian ecosystem will bring in more inclusion. It's also mentioned in the paper, right?
add?
The CBDC for Bharatvasis. I see that this has been covered as one of the major topics. So my next question to you, Rukesh, is uh, how is CBDC going to be different from the current banking system that we have? I think this is a very popular question that everybody wants to have an answer to. How would you put that?
Right. So look, we can call whatever we call, but see, okay, so let's look at the current payment systems that we have, right?
Mhm.
So we have the cash rupee, which is like the cash. Everybody has cash, right? So we have the cash, and then there are the digital form of cash, which is largely what we are operating them over, like credit cards, debit cards, um, all the other mechanisms, like even UPI, for example, or any other form of digital exchange, right?
Mhm.
Monetarily, they are all managed um, by monetarily they are all managed by the same method, right? So if you go back to the Brentwood method, a standard of gold, but now we don't do gold anymore. We get into we can just like the central banks can just print money, right? At a press of a button. So largely that's what is happening in the current form of money. And whatever settlement time it takes, the current form of money, right? Like, I mean, it takes for some time for, like, when you swipe a card, it still takes some time for that um,
Right.
card information to appear on the credit card statement. Correct.
Correct, correct.
So that's the current form of money that we are talking about now. Then we are talking about the crypto, right? And crypto is instantaneous. It operates over a distributed ledger. We can call it blockchain as well, which is a type of distributed ledger. Um, then, and if you talk about, like, say, Bitcoin, for example, the worst form of DLT implementation, you can call it, right? And of course, I mean, since Bitcoin has been out, I mean, there's been a lot of interest in this area, and everybody is launching all forms of currency, cryptocurrency, right? And today there are cryptocurrencies like Neo, for example, which does something like 40,000 TPS. So this game is changing extremely fast, and it's actually happening, changing really fast. But the problem with crypto is really um, there is the trust factor. So, like, while you, I, and everybody else, I'm guessing, on the call who's here, who would be able to trust, who would be able to get our way around crypto, right? And we know there is no centralized authority or anything. But when it comes to the masses, right, when it comes to the unbanked, and when it comes to the larger population at large, what happens if something goes wrong? What if my bitcoins, or what if my crypto gets stolen? Who do I go to? Right. So it's a matter of trust. And this is where the central banks kind of come in and fit in to provide that trust, which they've been doing for a long time, right? Now, of course, there are political issues that we can talk about, but I think that's outside the scope of this discussion, right? Like, Bitcoin is independent, it's decentralized, it's powerful, blah blah blah, as compared to a CBDC where it's still issued by central bank, right? But the other factor, of course, with the crypto is the volatility. The volatility is very high, right? Now, as it gets popular, of course, the volatility will come down. But
Absolutely.
You can't have your money swing, 100% up one time, one day, and the next day go down 100%, right? I mean, it's not just something practical, right? And then you've got the anonymity of it. Now, this is where it works against CBDC, whereas the cryptos are anonymous. The central bank digital currency, not as much, right? So those are some aspects around which makes a case for CBDC, right? Now, how does central bank then implement the CBDC? And that's that's another way, right? So do they, because it's no more distributed, does it actually need to be on a DLT? Can they just put it in maybe a relational database, or just do whatever they are currently doing and create a cryptocurrency? And I guess they can, but where DLT shines, and the real power of it is around the ability to bind the DLT in an immutable contract along with a smart contract, right? And there you get programmable money. And there are some of the use cases that we talk about in our paper, on how the smart contract can be used, largely beneficial. And therefore, and that's, I guess that's what I can keep on talking about this, Anusha. I'm passionate about this, but that's largely, I think, why CBDC makes sense, right, as
Yes.
opposed to
So,
staying
so,
with the crypto.
so if I need to say, then you, CBDC is a version where accountability holds high, volatility is less, and is designed to reach the masses. So, in some ways, I would say that I would ask you actually if CBDC is a response of the governments to cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, and the answer would be a partial yes. Wouldn't that be? Prashant, do you agree here?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. There is an absolute need for governments to uh, come up with a CBDC. I aside looking at the at some of the high points which bitcoins and other digital currencies, cryptocurrencies boast of. My open question would be: can you pay taxes in those currencies? Answer is no, you cannot. Governments run
Yes,
on taxes, right? So government will need government needs to recognize something as a legal tender. It's only then, whether it is a digital currency or a paper currency, it's only then it gets some value. So
Yeah.
CBDC, yeah. So that's where CBDC comes in place. There is enough. Uh, there is enough material around to justify the need of it, and that is where I see that steps have been taken by a number of governments in that direction to actually move ahead and make it happen. uh, so yes,
Yep.
uh, we really need to look at it, and we really need to look at it what will be the emerging landscape, how will various products, and in general how will, as a consumer, how will I be interacting with banking, how will I be handling my money, is what we should be looking at in near term.
got it. So we discussed everything around what CBDC has to offer, or should offer, or will offer in the future, and what are the other countries who are implementing a version of it are doing right now, like say the CBDC implemented by China. I get that part. I get that part, and the programmable currency, a fitting, a good answer to a volatile cryptocurrency era. So but then I also see things going wrong with CBDC. I mean, do you also see that this system might have some flaws, and when it will be introduced in a country like India and with a vision to reach the masses, uh, something going wrong would be a good price. It's a huge price to pay. So, what do you guys think can go wrong with CBDC implementation in
Yeah.
India?
So it's a very good question, and I think we identified some four challenges there, and Anusha, if you can help me with those, maybe you can talk about it. But the main one being the political influence, right?
Mhm.
So so I mean, CBDC is a parallel currency, not like the same. Like it's not the same currency as the stable coin, right? It's different.
Right. Right.
So, of course, it's linked to the same rupee, but it can still deviate. I'm guessing little bit. So it will be similar to a stable coin, right? Um, but there could be a political interferences around multiple ways on the consensus on who does the consensus, can the who is able to program that currency and let it do whatever, right?
Right.
Also in terms of when we start talking about subsidies, because that's the main benefit about providing subsidies uh, to the masses, right? And it's a programmable whereby you can only spend at a certain merchant, and also it expires at a certain place as well, right? So political definitely comes into one. What are the other ones we talked about? Remind.
I see
Yeah, go
it
ahead.
I see it going and getting a hit on a cyber security part of it, because as you see, a lot of decentralized finances have been hit by hackers, and a lot of money has been siphoned away, and a lot of smart contracts have been broken down. Uh,
Absolutely.
yeah, and so I see cyber attack or cyber
Yeah.
security as one of the reasons to worry. And as we are holding this open podcast, I also see the good part of where we have a very good telecommunication network set up in the country, so a lot of people will be exposed to it. uh, it's a good thing, but then people not knowing how to use a digital currency is a big threat to the currency itself. The
Absolutely.
politics, yes, the political part, yes, and the programmable part, yes. The smart contract being introduced into the digital currency is an innovation, plus a risk, and the cyber risk. I also see that
I
since
saw I'm seeing Ashish posting there as well. So Ashish is also one of our contributors
yes,
on the
let me
paper.
let me pick that
So
up.
he's talking about inoperability issues. So that one is a good one. So the CBDC is uh, it's able to house any place, right? So it's not necessarily where you need to have a bank account. Anybody can download and anybody can move the money around, as long as you've got a account based. If we make it account based or token based, but I think we propose account based. So if you've got a wallet, you can move the money around. So now how do you now if all the banks in the world starts launching the CBDC, how do you interoperate, right? What are the mechanisms in which and how do these exchanges operate, where the CBDCs of, say, the China CBDC is can interoperate with India or Sweden or some other country, right?
Right.
Um,
So I also had a discussion with Prashant in the past when we were working on the project. Where Prashant mentioned that since the time we submitted the project and to the time till now, the number of countries adopting CBDC and implementing them has increased in number. Prashant, would you like to share the numbers or what's going on that front?
Yeah, I mean, looking at the recent, I think just a couple of days back, we heard the news that U.S. Itself has, uh, U.S. President has signed an executive order uh, for the government to assess what is the long-term vision of what is their long-term vision of cryptocurrency. plus how do they foresee a digital version of their US dollar shaping up. Now, so imagine the attention this topic is already garnering. And we recently saw how China has actually gone ahead and created its own version. We heard in past, like countries like Bhutan, Sweden, they themselves are in the exploration phase. And if we look at our budget of the recently presented budget in our Indian system, Indian context, we do find that our government is equally interested in exploring the digital version of the currency. So yes, it's pretty much happening, and certainly a number of governments are getting closer to this idea of making it happen.
Got it, Prashant. So we are almost at the end of our discussion, but a couple of questions more. So, do you see any use cases for CBDC? If yes, what are those? Rukesh, would you like to take this up and give
I'll
us a
actually defer it to Prashant because he wrote some few use cases on that, right?
Yeah,
Go on, Prashant.
yeah. I mean, if you recall our all our discussions around programming money, one of our favorite case was the last mile financial inclusion, and being an agrarian economy, we conceptualized how a programmed farm loan can actually uh, be created with government interfering into the entire circulation of digital money basis factors which could have never been thought through. Example, your climate conditions. Example, your demand and supply of uh, a particular crop. So those considerations can now be programmed using the latest with the emerging technologies in this space. So that is where we are looking at. Once digital currency happens, those things will actually be real. And just uh, 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 looking at the China paper that came out last week, they have quoted a very they have quoted a very nice example themselves. You know how to reach out to people stuck in floods. Okay, how should you ensure that government is able to help them uh, if you are stuck in an if you're stuck in a natural calamity. Now this is the way forward. This is the way forward for us, for governments to reach out, for central banks to reach out, create an immediate issuance of digital currency, let it reach in real time. That should be the way forward, and that
so,
is
so
where
you're
the system.
saying that the current system where we have paper money and a combination of digital money takes more time to address such issues of floods or um, but then
Absolutely.
Yeah,
It's very
in
simple.
this,
It's very basic. It's very basic. Your money, your paper money cannot travel, right?
so
Your
CBDC
digital money
is
can.
a good
Yeah.
solution to this.
Yeah.
Yes,
Today
you're saying.
we are empowered. We are empowered to transact and purchase goods from far off lands. You know, we can just go online, log into various shopping sites, purchase a good, because the digital channels provisioned by banks and various systems allow you to do that. With paper money, you actually have to travel and get the get purchase the good or buy the asset, right? uh, the digital currency uh, is nothing but a money that can travel in real time with ever expanding population, ever expanding geographies. It certainly is going to be an empowerment in the hand of governments and the central banks.
Got it, Prashant. For
I
everyone,
think just to add there, Anusha, if you may,
sure.
like say, as at the time of Corona, the governments have largely printed a lot of money, right? All governments have printed a lot of money. Now, if there was CBDC, a lot of that printing could be targeted, and
Correct.
like if you see a lot of that money just effectively makes it into the share market, whatever that is, right? And that's why the stock markets around the world have kind of peaked, and then of course we are where we are right now because of the war, etc. Threat of war, not really war. Um, but so that targeting, the smart contract that we talked about earlier, uh,
Right.
ability for the central banks to target, like say, travel, they want to boost up travel, or they want to boost up the restaurant industry, hotel industry, or hospitality industry. They can program that and boost certain section, right? So it could have been quite powerful, I think. The other area, of course, which I don't know which direction it will go, but like we are seeing currently the sanctions and other things that are applied to the governments. How does that change? Because today SWIFT is a massive, big protocol for interoperability of money transfer, right? And in many ways it's slow. Of course, I mean, they're working on newer versions where it's starting to become near real time or more instantaneous. But nothing can beat the ability for me to send you a crypto like this
Yes.
second from my wallet to your wallet, right? Uh,
Yes.
and if I could have CBDC that operates just at that speed, I can move money around anywhere in the world very quickly, right? Of course, it creates another problems, which is around the illicit industry and the drug industry and the money laundering and all of that, right? Uh, but again, that CBDC allows the ability to target that, right? So now you can trace the money. It provides that traceability, so that,
True.
right? So like in our paper, we kind of talked about the KYC and non-KYC wallet, right?
I
So
agree that you get a lot of accountability when a CBDC comes into picture. It's like the master that we didn't have, and now that we want somebody to look and give us an umbrella of security and accountability. Doesn't it also mean, or wouldn't it also mean, that we will be exposing our sensitive data out in the open to the government, or the framework itself, like?
true. But so remember, that's why we talked about the implementation should have anonymous wallets and KYC wallets, right? So once you have money above certain number, then you have to do KYC mandatorily, right? And that's to track that. Now, if you look at the China implementation of CBDC as well, so China has also gone into the 4 types of wallets with different limits across, right? So how much can you spend daily? How much can you actually spend in a year? And how much, what the transaction value of each could be, right? So they've got 4 types of wallet, and the type 4, which is extremely very restrictive, it does not let you do more than 1,000 USD, I think. So see, that can be adjusted, right? It at least in my mind, it can be adjusted and you can tweak it. But see, the proponents of the crypto, right? Like, we big fans of crypto. So the proponents of crypto will not like, because it's traceable, but it's not really traceable, right? Unless you're talking Monroe or some other ways of obfuscating your transactions. Um, so so they would, of course, kind of say like, "Oh, I've got huge amount of anonymity," but then what are you trying to do, So I don't know. I mean, the non KYC, when you're doing low value transactions, of course it's anonymous and you can do whatever you want. But as soon as you start doing high value transactions, then I think the governments don't really like that, right?
It's the government stand on CBDC, and we welcome any digital innovation. That's what this open podcast is about. And for all the people listening to this podcast, uh, Rukesh mentioned about China use cases and the introduction of wallets, and I would like to quote that this particular great article is available on asiatimes.com. Uh, also, maybe one last question, if you guys are okay to accommodate that.
Go ahead,
If
Anusha.
it's easy one, if it's an easy one.
Yes, I'll make it an easy one. So what do you think about the crypto market. I mean, when you say crypto, it's exactly opposite to what the CBDC is. This is going to be centralized, and crypto wave rides on the wave of decentralization or decentralized finance. So do you think both can coexist together?
I think at least my personal view is it would. I mean, I'll let Prashant also answer that. But my personal view is that, the like of crypto is not going away. The flexibility and everything that it provides, it has a value, right? But only time will tell, because different governments are snapping different things, right? So China, just before it launching its CBDC, put a stop to the whole Bitcoin gig, right? And
Yes,
moved
yes,
all the
yes.
mining and everything out. Similarly, if you look at Australia's been quite sensible in that way. They actually put out how they are going to tax it, how they are going to treat it, and all of that, right? But they're treating it as an asset, absolutely, right? So different countries will do different things with it. Only time will say, whether what will stay, right?
Prashant,
I mean,
what would you like to say about this?
yes, to answer you, can they coexist? My view is certainly they can coexist. Uh, how will they coexist in the entire ecosystem? I feel that Bitcoin will be more of a virtual asset, and it is very likely that in the times to come it becomes the peg against basket of digital currencies. So if that happens, uh, it's the perfect coexistence. Actually, Bitcoin continues to be uh, an asset that grows in value with time, and pegging of digital currencies against it, just democratizes everything and all versions of digital currency. So that's how I see their coexistence.
Got it. Got it, Prashant. So that was my last question, Rukesh and Prashant. Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much for your time. For all the viewers out there, uh, CBDC for Bharat Vasis, that particular
The
publish,
bit rupee.
yes. So that will be made available to you. You can click on the link provided there, provided below for your reference. It's on Discourse as well. And thank you all for your time today. Please let us know in the comments what you think about this. Thank you. Bye,
Thank
bye
you.
everyone.
Bye bye.